What's up, Steelers Nation? Welcome back to the channel where we break down everything black and gold. And let me start with this. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in a constant pursuit of improvement. Every offseason, every training camp, every roster move, it's all about getting sharper, more disciplined, and more prepared to bring winning football back to the city of Pittsburgh. This team isn't just satisfied with competing. The standard is the standard. It's about chasing greatness and delivering results that honor the legacy of this franchise. Now, before we jump into today's huge story, one that caught even the most die-hard fans off guard, let me remind you, hit that like button right now. It helps us grow this community, and it lets me know you want more exclusive breakdowns like this one. All right, let's dive in. The final 53-man roster is always filled with drama, surprises, and heartbreak. But this year, Steelers Nation, we saw one cut that shocked nearly everyone. Cornerback Beanie Bishop Jr. Yes, you heard that right. Bishop, the same guy who just last year went from undrafted rookie to starting nickelback, did not make the 53-man roster for 2025. Instead, he's been sent to the practice squad. Now, when you look at the list of names the Steelers moved on from, you'll recognize some veterans. Wide receiver Robert Woods, running back Trey Sermon, defensive lineman DeMarvin Leal, punter Cameron Johnston, wideouts Lance McCutcheon and Brandon Johnson, even some promising undrafted free agents like Sebastian Castro and Daryl Porter Jr. Those hurt, but none of those names carried the weight of Bishop's. Let's rewind for a second. Bishop came into Pittsburgh last year as an undrafted free agent. No guarantees, no hype, just a guy trying to prove himself. And prove himself he did. He forced his way into the starting lineup early in 2024. He wasn't just a body on the field, he was making plays. In fact, he won AFC Rookie of the Month in October, with 5 pass breakups and 3 interceptions. That's not just surprising production, that's star-level impact. But his rookie year was a tale of two halves. He started 5 of the first 10 games, but saw his role shrink down the stretch. By the final 2 weeks, he was almost invisible, just 6 total defensive snaps in weeks 17 and 18. Still, even with that dip, most of us believed Bishop had carved out a secure role for 2025. Instead, the Steelers shocked us by cutting him. Why did this happen? A big part of it was the Steelers' blockbuster trade for Jalen Ramsey. Add Ramsey to a room that already had Darius Slay and rising star Joey Porter Jr., and suddenly the depth chart looked very crowded. But here's the twist. Despite all that star power, Pittsburgh actually has some real injury concerns at cornerback. Dante Kent, Cameron McCutcheon, and Corey Trice are all starting the year on injured reserve. That leaves only one healthy backup, Brandon Epples. So the decision to cut Bishop, of all people, feels puzzling. He has more proven production than any of those backups. He's one of the better slot defenders in the league, and given the durability concerns around Slay and Ramsey, both of whom have missed time in recent seasons, it feels almost inevitable that Bishop will be called back up from the practice squad. In other words, this might not be the end of Bishop's journey in Pittsburgh. Far from it. Let's zoom out. The Steelers are almost unrecognizable compared to last year. Only 16 starters returned from 2024. Nearly every phase of the game has been retooled. The headliners were, of course, the signing of Aaron Rodgers and the trades that brought in DK Metcalf and sent George Pickens packing. But beyond the big names, this roster has been reshaped top to bottom. The offensive line is intact. The edge rushing unit is intact. Beyond that, this is a new-look team. And in a year of transition like this, cuts like Bishop's are the byproduct of the front office going all in on win-now veterans. Here's the truth about Beanie Bishop Jr. If the Steelers don't bring him back soon, somebody else will. Nickelbacks who can defend the slot and create turnovers are always in demand. In today's NFL, where offenses live in 3-receiver sets, you can't have enough corners who can hold their own. Bishop may not have the frame to be a long-term outside starter, but as a slot defender, he's already proven he belongs. Don't be surprised if another team gives him a shot if Pittsburgh doesn't. While the cuts made headlines, we can't ignore another story making waves in Steelers camp: Aaron Rodgers' impact as a leader. We've heard from players across the roster about how Rodgers has embraced his role since signing. His football IQ is legendary. But what surprised many is how much he's invested in the defense, too. Special teams captain Miles Killebrew recently shared that Rodgers has been talking to defensive backs about disguises, coverages, and how quarterbacks read their looks. Think about that. A four-time MVP quarterback using his knowledge of how defenses try to fool him to help his own corners and safeties become harder to read. That's next-level leadership, and it's exactly what this team has been missing since Ben Roethlisberger retired. Steelers fans know it well. The years since Ben retired have been rough at quarterback. Penny Pickett flamed out. Russell Wilson butted heads with coaches. Justin Fields showed flashes but never got the trust he deserved. It felt like every year was the same story. No stability, no leadership, no direction. Aaron Rodgers, for all the questions about his time with the Jets, has so far been exactly what Pittsburgh hoped for. A steady, commanding presence who can raise the level of everyone around him. And if he's breaking down disguises for Joey Porter Jr. and sharing tips with the secondary, that's priceless.
And let's also remember, quarterback is the most important position in football. Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old, Mason Rudolph is a solid but limited backup, and rookie Will Howard is currently on injured reserve. Suddenly, having Thompson as QB3 doesn't feel like a luxury, it feels like a necessity. So Khan's decision was smart. He's holding on to Thompson unless a desperate team comes calling, and maybe then the Steelers can extract real value. Now, let's talk about the other major piece of this puzzle, Will Howard. The Steelers drafted him in the 6th round this year, and the plan was clear. Rodgers is QB1, Rudolph is QB2, and Howard develops quietly as QB3. But injuries have a way of rewriting plans in the NFL. During training camp, Howard injured his hand on a simple quarterback-center exchange. It kept him sidelined all preseason, and while the hand itself is recovering, the real concern is his shoulder after weeks without proper throwing. That's why Howard is starting the season on short-term injured reserve. It's not career-threatening, but it does mean the Steelers had no choice but to keep Thompson on the roster. You can't risk rolling into Week 1 with just Rodgers and Rudolph. And speaking of Rudolph, let's not forget his role here. He signed a 2-year, $8 million deal to come back to Pittsburgh after a year in Tennessee, and fans will remember his heroics in 2023. When Kenny Pickett went down and Mitch Trubisky was benched, Rudolph stepped in and delivered a 3-0 stretch, throwing for 719 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He wasn't flashy, but he was efficient, confident, and he earned the trust of Steelers Nation. That's why the team was comfortable bringing him back. He's a steady QB2. But as much as we like Rudolph, we all know he's not the long-term future. That's why Howard's development matters, and why Thompson's presence gives this roster flexibility. Here's the reality. Carrying 3 quarterbacks might not be sustainable all season. Once Howard returns from IR, the Steelers will face a decision. Do they cut Thompson? Do they try to stash him on the practice squad knowing another team might scoop him up? Or do they finally trade him if the right offer comes along? My guess is they'll wait. Quarterback injuries are inevitable in the NFL. It happens every single year. When a starting QB goes down on some other team, that's when Omar Khan's phone will ring. And that's when Thompson's preseason performance could turn into serious trade value, maybe even a day 3 draft pick or better. Until then, though, Pittsburgh has the rare luxury of depth at the most important position in sports. Rodgers is the star, Rudolph is steady, Thompson is sharp and gaining confidence, and Howard is the project with upside. Not a bad situation at all. And let's not forget, Aaron Rodgers isn't just playing quarterback this year. He's mentoring the entire room. We've already heard reports about how Rodgers has been coaching up not only the offense, but even the defense, sharing his knowledge with corners, safeties, and linebackers. That trickle-down effect is huge. A guy like Skylar Thompson benefits enormously from just being in the same room with Rodgers. It raises his football IQ, his confidence, and his understanding of how to attack defenses. So even if Thompson never plays a snap in Pittsburgh, the Rodgers effect could make him a valuable trade asset. That's another reason why Omar Khan is playing the long game here. So Here's where we stand heading into the 2025 season. Beanie Bishop Jr.'s cut was the most surprising move of the roster deadline. A player who once looked like a rising star now finds himself on the practice squad, though injuries may force his return to the active roster soon. The Steelers are a team in transition, with major offseason changes that reshaped almost every unit. Only the O-line and edge rushers remain intact from 2024. Aaron Rodgers has been a unifying leader, not just for the offense, but across the entire roster, even giving tips to defensive players. That kind of cross-unit leadership is exactly what this team needs if they're going to finally break through in the playoffs. Now, I want to hear from you. Were you shocked by the decision to cut Beanie Bishop Jr.? Do you think he'll be back on the active roster before long? And what do you make of Rodgers' leadership so far? Do you believe he's the piece that can finally get this team over the hump? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this breakdown and you want more deep dives on everything Steelers, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This season is going to be one to remember, and we'll be here every step of the way. Here we go, Steelers Nation. Let's ride.